Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We wanted to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate you for that in advance. Now, the Braves missed out on the opportunity last night. The Falcons have to pressure Jacoby Brissett. And last but not least, and for the culture, T, Michael Jordan just doing GOAT things. That's just who he is. But first, we have to talk about the Braves lose last night. They lose 3-2 in extra innings. And I don't know about you, T, but I'm sitting here watching the game last night. I'm just like, the Braves are probably going to lose this game. But I think my big takeaway though is that they missed out on the opportunity, as they get ready to go up against the New York Mets on Friday night. And I think that the Braves should have known what was at hand, what was at stake right here, and push to try to get that extra run so they can get the win.
Yeah. And for me, the big takeaway was thank God it was Abbott Elementary's season premiere so that I could smile. Because I saw this game bad.
Right.
I saw that Braves game going sideways. So I was like, yeah, let me just tap in. Thank God I have 2 monitors to look at. Because I will be honest, I was getting frustrated because I was like, God, so you literally score 16 runs across the first 2 games and can only eke out 2 runs in the most critical game. You needed to sweep that game because you knew 9 times out of 10, the Mets certainly were not going to win or lose, rather, 2 games in a row to the Marlins. Now, granted, they ended up taking them to extras, but it was almost like literally just poetic justice in a bad way, right?
Right. Yeah.
Braves get to extras, lose by 1. Mets get to extras, win by 1. And now they're back up 1. So, yeah, you really have put a bit more pressure on yourselves because you're looking at the fact that you kind of now have to sweep the series against the Mets so that your fate is in your hands, so that the Braves will control their own destiny. And also, when you think about it, the Mets hold the tiebreaker. So that's another reason that no, Braves, you can't just win the series 2-1. For your own sake, you're going to have to win it for 3. Now, what I do like is this: they remain confident. Michael Harris II and other players talked about that last night. Like, they understand the assignment. They're not going to put pressure on themselves. But I do think when you look at that weekend series and you're looking at it mano a mano, to me, it's going to come down to not so much maybe even the at-bats, but maybe the final at-bat and maybe the bullpen, to be honest with you. Because I think the pitching, it may be, it may be one and the same, or, 1-to-1, apples to apples. But it's going to come down to something, and the Braves are going to have to pull this thing out big time. Weekend series sweep in order for them to make it happen and decide for themselves how they're going to get into the postseason.
And you hope that the bats wake up, right? Because that's going to be the key, man. True enough, it's going to be about pitching. This series against the Mets is going to be much more about pitching than it is guys at the plate. Because I think that the one thing that I'm really super concerned about is the fact that when you have a guy like Charlie Morton being in that third, and potentially being whether or not you're going to decide who's going to win the series if they split those first 2, we know exactly who that is if it wasn't for Spencer Strider getting hurt. I think he would have been in that third slot. And I think that was the plan for Brian Snitker, to make sure that he gets one of those starting spots against the New York Mets. Because what have we said all year when it comes to Charlie Morton?
Yeah.
Man, we hope he's able to, Uncle Charlie is able to put one together tonight.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's been a set every time, every start. We're just like, oh man. I was watching the post game just like watching the post game, and I'm sitting up here like, the guy was talking about it. He was like, well, hopefully Charlie Morton's able to put it together. I was like, we've been saying that all year, all season. We've been saying that, and for him to be in that potentially third and decisive game, and this the biggest series of the season for both teams. That's safe to say. I'm just concerned, and then being that you're in a case where you have to sweep in order to have an opportunity to have a tiebreaker at the end of the season, you
Right.
just put yourself in a bad situation by losing this game last night against the worst team in the National League, the
Mhm.
Washington Nationals. Like, so
Right.
it's just for me, I got a little frustrated watching
Mhm.
that game last night,
Yeah.
and trying to take it all in, because I started going down a rabbit hole. I was like, man, this is gonna mean this. This is gonna mean that. And I'm just like, man, Bray, see what y'all did to me?
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah.
But let's move
Same.
on. Let's move on to a team that makes us happy. The
Yeah.
Atlanta Hawks. They had their open practice, and all the fanfare, everything was all good last night, as the Atlanta Hawks, were invited everybody out to State Farm Arena. I believe it was over almost 7,000 fans. So
Yes.
a
Yes.
lot of good, good vibes going on out at State Farm Arena. Now, T, as the Hawks get ready to go to Abu Dhabi and take
Yeah.
on the Milwaukee Bucks for a
Mhm.
preseason game, what is one thing for you that you see that you are looking to see,
Yeah.
as we head into camp and preseason?
How's it looking for the Hawks now that there are two true ball handlers in the backcourt? That to
Yeah.
me is going to be so critical just to see how they begin to gel. I had a conversation with Landry Fields, had an opportunity to meet him a couple days ago. First time meeting him, and I asked him and Coach Nate as well the same question. But I'll go with Coach Nate first because I think you'll want to piggyback on what Landry had to say. So
Okay.
with Coach, I said, "Hey Coach, there's so much buzz around the city about the Hawks. There's so much excitement in what's going on, but not just with the core team, but with the new member of the core team." I said, "So what are your thoughts so far, what you've seen in DeJounte Murray?" Can I tell you his whole face lit up?
Oh
We
yeah.
both started laughing because
He's
I was like,
consistent
"Okay,
too.
coach."
He's consistent. He is so
Yes,
consistent. Like, I saw him in the presser for media
yes,
day.
yes,
When he was talking about DeJounte Murray, he literally smiled. Like, I don't
yes.
see Nate McMillan. I don't
No,
see Coach Nate
right.
smile that
Other
much.
than when he
Like,
teased me because he was like, "Oh, how you gonna come in late? How you gonna call me out, coach?" But okay then. So once we got the jokey
yes,
joke
yes.
out of
To
the
your
way,
point, yes.
yes, he was like, and hey, people, I wasn't on CP time. It was Atlanta traffic.
Of course.
But one thing that Coach said is he loves the fact that he's got somebody who just is jumping in and just embracing the philosophy, like someone
Right.
who's really buying into the philosophy, and he's bringing players along with him. And then Landry Fields essentially reiterated that, right? So he
Right.
said, what I like about him, and he said, of course, taking nothing away from the skills on the court, but he was like, he is not afraid to speak up. So he said, I watched him at practice a couple of days ago, and someone just missed by a hair the play that was set. And
Mm-hmm.
DeJounte pretty much stopped everything and was like, okay, man, we can't have that. Here's what should have happened. And he said the players were very receptive. They
Yes,
took
Lord.
the feedback and kept it
Yes.
moving. And he said,
Yes.
that is what, if the fans can be patient with us, that's what it takes. And I said, yeah, Landry, because Jarvis, at the end of the day, we should not be expecting them to come out on this 8-0 run. And oh my God, the Hawks are undefeated because they got DJM. They're 17-0. Nah, that's not gonna happen. But come late November, early December, I think we're all gonna like the product. So just wanted to share that with you as far as what they're seeing is much the same as what we want to see, which is how will the gelling be around DeJounte Murray, fitting him into that backcourt and really having two strong weapons to bring that ball up.
Yeah, like, I think you said something that made me start thinking about Eastern Conference Finals, when somebody is willing to say something when somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do. Because that's what the Hawks have been missing, because
Mhm.
nobody has that in them, right? Because I've always talked about how JC opened his mouth sometimes
Mhm.
and he doesn't need to. Instead, when it's time to open his mouth, he doesn't need to. He doesn't. So I think when that little nugget right there you just told me, just to say, hey, give the Hawks some time, be patient, because
Yes.
that end result is going to be much better than it was
Mhm.
last year. I can guarantee that, based off of
Yes.
what you just said, just right
Mhm.
there. Now, T, whew, the Atlanta Falcons are taking on the Cleveland Browns this weekend,
Yeah.
and they have to get to the quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is not Tom Brady, but he will slice you up if you don't get pressure. We'll talk about all that next. Before we do that, we have to talk about Bet betonline.net. And when you think about what's going on this weekend, Georgia versus Missouri,
Yeah.
you know, that big 45-point spread, they didn't get it last week against Kent State, but they're taking on Missouri. So if you're trying to figure out which way you should go to betonline.net, because it is continues to be the top online source for all your sports wagering information, for live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They got you covered. And if you're not into college football, I don't know what's wrong with you, or you're not into the NFL, the NBA, what's wrong with you? Maybe you're into esports, golf, combat sports. They have all of that, even hockey. They got everything you need. And of course, the NBA is right around the corner. Now, what I need you to do is go to head to Bet Online today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the action that's happening today, because Bet Online is where the game starts.
Yes. And some would say now that the Falcons have gotten that first dub out of the way, now the season has really started for them. And so they have their first true test. And for me, I call this the first true test because I felt like they hung with the Rams and we knew they were going to hang with the Saints, and of course got the win with the Seahawks. But I feel like this is going to be one of the first tests, and maybe more so than anything, of the defense. So this morning, our guys, Hugh Douglas, of course, friend to the show, and John Fricke had defensive coordinator Dean Pease on their morning show. Take a listen to what Dean Pease had to say when he was asked the question about defense, but specifically about applying pressure.
You know, you don't want to always have to pressure to try to get a sack, you know, because as soon as you pressure, you're putting a little more pressure on the back end, because if we don't get there, there's going to be some holes, or you're playing man coverage or whatever. You can't cover them forever. So you don't want to always do that. You want to be able to get, we still like get more pressure with just being able to rush forward, but hey, it is what it is.
Wow, T.
Yeah, lots of impact there, but
right.
there was, and that was just the abbreviated
version. Yes,
from the morning show on 92.9 The Game. But I thought what it made me think of was you could go all over the place with this, but based on what Dean Pease said and based on what you know about that Browns offense, what do you think is the number one key, just the number one key to getting a win against the Browns?
I think it's going to have to be run fits. Because I got a chance to, go back and look at some more of the film from the game against the Seahawks. And I think there was some things just maybe where, and a lot of times when defense, people like to throw the whole setting the edge thing out there. Oh, you got to set the edge. But a lot of times, like it's a little bit more to it than that, right? Yeah. It's technique. It's taking on the blocks the right way, or making sure I'm squeezing my man down in the hole so he doesn't be able to slip up to the next level, because just in case I don't make the tackle, my homeboy is going to be right behind me, right there waiting to get him. And that happened several times against the Seattle Seahawks. That's why you saw the Seahawks go off in the run game initially, and the Falcons got out to a bad start. If the Falcons start like they did last week, T, Chubby Baby is gonna take over. It's gonna be a long. It ain't gonna be no comeback. It's not gonna be it's gonna be a boxing match or anything like that. It is gonna get ugly, because that's the biggest strength for the Cleveland Browns. Their offensive line. They keep their running backs clean. I know that sounds weird when you say you keep your quarterback clean. They keep their running backs clean. There's nobody in the backfield when their running back gets the ball. Most of the time, they don't get touched until it's the second level. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that the Falcons have to absolutely do, is they have to be able to have get in their run fits and making sure they're playing with each other and not trying to play hero ball and make tackles.
Yes. And also, you made an excellent point about not just Nick Chubb, but they've got to get ready for Kareem Hunt, because the Browns have a 1-2 punch.
Oh, my goodness.
So you really have to be ready. And same styles, but then again, different styles, because you have, bruising, and then you have speed, but then you have speed and bruising. So it's kind of like, what we used to call thunder and lightning here for UGA. It's almost like Thunder and Lightning Part 2. So that's, I think, the other piece that the Falcons have to be prepared for, because in a typical offense, your goal is to get a team to 3rd and long, because you're thinking if you can win the battle of down and distance, then you're going to force them to throw the ball. And then that gives you an opportunity, whether you want to blitz and get that quarterback uncomfortable, maybe pressure him to throw early, or if you want to make sure that all the pass catchers or the receivers are man covered, then you're good to go. Not here, because
Mm-hmm.
here they might have 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, and they're like, just give the ball to Chubb, just give the
I
ball to
know.
Hunt,
Yeah.
and they can slice you up the same way as another team's quarterback to his receiver or quarterback to his tight end can slice you up. So yeah, I agree. I think that the key to winning is to make sure that everybody, all 11, have understand their responsibility in contributing to stopping the run early. That's the point you made. I want to reiterate that early, because once these guys go off and they start wearing you down, think about this, Jarvis. Cool stat. The Falcons allowed the Seahawks' entire running back core and their quarterback to get a total of 112 rushing yards against them last week. Want to know how many yards Nick Chubb had on his own against my beloved Steelers? 113 yards. The dude all by himself
Yeah.
had more yards than the Falcons allowed a whole team to have last week. So that's really where it comes. Now, the other piece there is this, however, one thing we know for certain is that the Falcons offense is really, really starting to function on all cylinders.
Right.
So when you look at the offense, and we'll take more of a deep dive into the offense tomorrow as well, but
Indeed.
just for that high level eye test, what would you say maybe one small thing that they might want to course correct so that they can get off to an early start against the Browns?
I think if just from a standpoint, play a clean football game.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, don't put the ball on the ground. Don't turn the ball over. How about that?
Yeah.
I think if the Falcons can play their first clean game,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to set themselves up beautifully
Yeah.
to be able to get a victory against the Cleveland Browns. Because as much as I just said about the offensive line and how they can get into a rhythm running the football, and
Mm-hmm.
then you get it to a point where they're doing play action, and
Yes.
Jacoby Brissett is sitting back there having all day to throw the football because DNP said, hey, I don't want to send too many pressures. I'm going to put the back end of my defense in too much trouble.
Right.
But I think that from offensively, you can help with that, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're able to run the football, control the clock, and their best defensive player is not going to be on the field.
Right.
Those are some of the things that you have to take advantage of. And I believe wholeheartedly you can do that by playing clean, not putting the ball on the ground, and not throwing the ball to the other team. That the Falcons will set themselves up for not easy. That's too that was a little bit too far. But they'll set themselves up really nicely if they play a clean football game.
Yeah. And everyone from the veterans on down on that O-line, please, no pre-snap penalties, because that's another definition of playing a clean game. Is just, and I mean veterans as well as those, all y'all. Just
all y'all.
All y'all. Because
everybody.
that also was something, just a few, don't want to nitpick because it certainly has gotten better than it was last year. But if you can just keep away from pre-snap penalties that get you into a situation where maybe you could have had 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 3, but now you're at 1st and 15, that does really make it a challenge to continue to move the chains. Now, speaking of moving things, when Michael Jordan makes a move, he absolutely makes things happen. And we're going to talk about that in For the Culture. But I will tell you something that I really could have used to make me move this morning was coffee AM. And I come in every day and I'm like, one of these days I'm going to tell you guys I actually drank the coffee versus the tea. But here's the deal. We were talking about it this morning on the morning show at my other job. And everybody was just dragging this morning. I don't know why. We were all just super, super tired. So I asked one of my colleagues a question because he always has this energy drink. And I'm like, what's in that? Is that healthy? Is that fresh? Is it safe? And he's like, not healthy, not fresh, probably not safe either. I would venture to say coffee AM is probably the polar opposite of that, right? Because there it is, a fresh product. There it is, a local product. And there it is, a product where they take pride in going all around the world to get the best ingredients for you so that when you're drinking, you feel like, wow, they just made this small batch roast company. They just made this, especially for me. That's how you should feel as opposed to going down the energy drink aisle. And you know what happens. You crash and burn later on in the day. So if you want to get the goods, go to coffeeam.com/locked on. And if it's your first order with the company, which I hope for most of you it's not, because we've been telling you guys about it for a while now, but if it is, then you will get 15% off that first order by using the Locked On code. So again, check out coffeeam.com/locked on for your 15% off. And if you just so happen to not like coffee, the green tea is good. Now that's safe and that's good for your energy, and you can gift it to somebody as well. coffeeam.com/locked on.
Now, T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture. And sometimes we want to talk about, because that's how we get down on this for show. Today is no different, because, as you mentioned earlier, Michael Jordan is doing GOAT things out of here. And because, as you all know, nearly, or may not know, nearly 50% of high school seniors have said that they wish they learned personal finance in school. Thankfully, MJ, the GOAT, like I mentioned, is going to make that happen. And according to news release, 498,000 primarily Black and Hispanic students who attend 639 high schools across the country will have access to a personal finance course for a one-time grant of next gen personal finance from Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand. So how about that, T? Mike is gonna get everybody some game on how to handle your finances, because we know once you get to an adult, it might be too late. You're gonna go through some things until you figure that bad boy out.
Yeah, and if you can have that mitigated, wow, that's amazing to me, because it's not something that many of us had really exposure to. I can recall sometimes several times in high school, like every year, it was, okay, you're moving into geometry, algebra, calculus, and you're wondering, and how will this help me in my day-to-day life again? But when I know I asked for, because I finished by like 10th grade, and I was like, hey, I've already finished all my math courses, so can I like take this business finance course just to kind of learn a little bit more? And they were like, well, no, that's not kind of the honors track. Well, you know what? It should have been, because that to me is one of the flaws of education, that we're not teaching practical skill sets. To me, it doesn't matter if you're in, just the base classroom, or if you're in the gifted and talented classroom, or if you're in the shop classroom for, trade. All of them need to be taught finances, because what happens is you start to learn. It's like you said, you are literally like, it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill climb, because you're trying to figure it out on the back end. So excited that he's giving these kids the opportunity to figure this thing out on the front end, because you can be so much further ahead in life if you understand finance, even at its basic level.
And you know what? To be honest with you, the one thing that kind of opened my eyes, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, like right before I met my wife, Tanae. The first time I ever mentioned her name on the show. Yes. So yeah, don't do anything crazy with that, because I might have to do something crazy. But the first thing that kind of really opened my eyes to like finance and interest rates and all that stuff, because like I said, I didn't get that when I was younger. I didn't get that. I didn't have those conversations, because my parents weren't the best with money either. You know what I mean? To be totally honest. So there was this truck that I had purchased when I was in my early 20s. It was a Chevrolet Trailblazer, 2003 Chevrolet Trailblazer. It was my first real car, my first car note, right? So I'm up here trying to figure out what the payoff amount is. I'm trying to get the thing paid off and see what's going on. So I was able to get access to the original contract, and I started looking up and down the contract. I was like, and I got to the APR. I was just like, why did my parents let me buy a truck that had a 26% interest rate, T? A 26% interest rate. It took me forever to pay off that truck. I literally bought that truck in my early 20s, and I met my wife, started dating my wife when I was in my late 20s. So do the math on that. That's a very long time. Like, I almost double paid for that car, in the 6-7 years. I'm just like, oh my God, like, what is going on? So, and I really, when I saw that, it was, I just probably went just as crazy as I just did just now. But when you think about learning on the back end, like I learned that on the back end. Like, how do you not look at when you look at a contract before you sign and say, what's up with this interest rate? Like, what's the deal? Like, what is that? I didn't even know. I didn't even think to
Right.
sign, even think about what that interest rate was because it makes a difference. Like
Yes.
I double, triple pay for that truck. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like I
Yes.
go out and get a car now. I'm looking at the interest rate. Like,
Mhm.
oh, we can give you a 6%. No, I
Right.
got good credit.
Yes.
Like I'm gonna leave.
Right.
Or I'm gonna go get I'm gonna come to the dealership with a
Dealership
check from a
secondhand.
bank because I already know I know what I'm dealing with, right? So
Mhm.
I'm in the position of power from a negotiation
Yes.
standpoint about
Yes.
price. So all those things I had to learn on the
Right.
back end. So shout
Yeah.
out to Mike for just, man, I'm telling you, you're gonna put these kids are gonna be so far ahead in
Yes.
life because you're talking about 50% of adults
Right.
wish they had that, at that age, saying
Mhm.
when you're learning and grasping things and retaining a lot of information,
Mhm.
to go forward in life. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to Mike, like doing real
Yeah.
GOAT stuff. T.
Mhm.
There is, we have to mention this and we talked about this before, but I think that, if we didn't mention the fact that Coolio, rapper, passed away last night, and
Yeah.
I was remember just scrolling through my Twitter time, and I was like, man, Coolio passed? Good Lord. Obviously it had the big hit Gangsta's Paradise, and it was a
Mhm.
movie that was a part of the soundtrack of, and it was just really, really just took off. So I think it's rest in peace to Coolio too.
Yeah. Rest in peace indeed. And although he was 59, you just still feel like that was too soon.
Right,
You really,
exactly.
really feel like it was too soon. So it also made us think about the jewels and the gems that we still have here in the hip hop universe. And thank God, because on this show, we love Jesus, but we like Jeezy too. So
Yes.
happy birthday, Jeezy. Yes, we do.
See, you said to yourself just now, let me see what I can say to throw this show off the rails.
Officially off.
Yes, very off. So off.
But I can't take credit for that. No. My girlfriend, Rashawn Ali, coined that phrase. So I cannot take credit for it. But I told her I
Oh
would use it in a sentence one day. And here we are. So happy 45th birthday to Jeezy. The snowman is one of my favorites. Oh my God.
oh
Anytime
my
I'm
god.
on Campbellton Road,
Oh my
I
goodness.
get me on. And you guys say, "It's corny," but that's what I think of. I go to the gym over in Greenbrier from time
Yeah.
to time. And so got to hit, Campbellton. And I'm like, I just think about Jeezy all the time.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
just so many gems. I mean, what's your favorite Jeezy? I mean,
Oh my God. Like so I'm glad you asked. So I remember when I was in college. See how where I'm going with this. I remember
right.
when I was in college and we're in Atlanta. I went to school down in Albany State, shout
Mhm.
out Albany State Golden Rams. Yeah, we get down. And now he had just dropped a mixtape. So we
Mhm.
were and it was in the summertime. So
Okay.
I was reporting for training camp, and me and my boys, we from Atlanta, so we up on the new music, right? So
Mhm.
we going around campus, we
Yeah.
bumping the G's. They were like, man, who is that? Like,
Right.
I was like, what do you mean, who is that? Like, this is Jeezy, like, the snowman. They was like, oh, like, where y'all get that joint from? So of course, might have made a little extra money, dubbing it over a little bit, but that's in the past.
Yeah.
Y'all can't
Jeezy
get me
would
for that.
appreciate the
Yeah, he
hype.
would
For
appreciate
sure.
that. So, but yeah, like that entire mixtape is still my favorite.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
anything after that, I was just like, that first mixtape he dropped. Oh my goodness! Last time I checked, I was the man of these streets. Oh man, I
Yeah.
put blow on
Yeah.
these beasts. That
Just,
diarrhea flow. I still. Oh, never mind. I mean, ain't gonna do all that to you. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Shout happy birthday to
Love
Jeezy.
him. Yes. Love him. Love
Yes,
him.
yes.
I really, really do. And speaking of I do, that's my favorite Jeezy song. I do followed by Put On. So it's like a
You
1A and a
killing it
1B.
today.
Yeah.
Killing it. You're on fire.
Absolutely. Still bump it. And we'll probably go down the hip hop rabbit hole as soon as this show ends, just so you all
Yes.
know.
Yes, Lord.
Because another rapper recently, so Jeezy, of course, turned 45 yesterday. So we're wishing him a belated happy birthday. Also want to wish a belated happy birthday to Tucci. He turned 40. Lil Wayne turned 40
Little
on
gremlin.
Tuesday.
Little
So,
gremlin.
of
Happy birthday.
course, yes, we had to say shout out to him too. So, I got to ask that question as well before we wrap up as we're getting out of here. What is your favorite? It could be a Lil Wayne song. It could be a collabo because Lord knows he's collabed on 50,000 songs. So,
Oh my gosh. Wow. Like Lil Wayne has been done so much. Like I think he probably have to be the early days. I know like he magically graduated into a lyricist, at some point after the hot boy era and all that stuff.
Right.
But like I'm a hot boy. Like anything like
Yeah.
it was just something about that Lil Wayne that I was just like, man,
Mhm.
I really like. I guess because he was my age, like Wayne
Yeah.
and I are the exact same age, so I think that
Uh-huh.
I identify with him more when he was with Cash Money and the
Right.
whole Hot Boy era. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it have to be that era of music,
Oh,
as
no
far as
question.
for
Because
Lil Wayne.
right, because when you think about like some of the songs where, don't get me wrong, we love the lyricism of Back That Thing Up by Juvenile, but
Yes, of
really
course.
what you like, what makes you come out of your corporate self is that part when Lil Wayne is talking about after you back it up and stop.
Drop,
You know what
drop,
it
drop
makes
it
you
like
do.
it's hot.
So, so thank you, Tunchi,
Right.
for bringing that into
Yes,
the
I love it.
American.
Tenitra saying Tucci on this show makes it a great podcast. Y'all better listen to this doggone show. What's wrong with y'all? Giving
Thank
y'all this
you.
good stuff.
Thank you so much for bringing that into the American lexicon. We
Yes.
appreciate you. So tomorrow, when we get it back on the rails, we will
Yes.
be previewing Braves Mets. We're going to preview Falcons Browns and anything else that comes up in the city that we put on for from a sports perspective. We will bring it to you guys. So thanks so much for dropping by. Thanks for stopping on our YouTube page as well. 4,000 subscribers and growing for the Locked On Sports Atlanta network. And we will see you tomorrow.
Y'all come back now, you hear?